Hello, this is David Baumblatt from Terabens Leadership. Welcome to the program. Today should be interesting. Again, if you've been following me, if you know my background, I've spent a good portion of my entire life studying, researching, experiencing with the goal of becoming a China expert. Hence, now we have Donald Trump right now in Beijing with his entourage. It's good to talk about this subject. What I also would like to say is, as in many issues, there's a lot of people in America who talk about subjects they don't know. It's your freedom, do what you want. But I say again, I'm not talking about the average person. I'm talking about even the so-called government experts. Nobody knows as much about China than me in the US government. In the private sector, I've said that's a totally different story. And I'm sure there are many experts higher than me. In the United States government, no way. Because it goes back to what I'm telling you, and it relates to the bigger picture that we're going to talk about, and that is our government, and it's been happening for decades now. The best and the brightest are not in our government. Everyone knows my opinion of Donald Trump. It's sliding, but I've said the best president in my entire life. Again, I'm not pleased with him at all, but never worked a day in the government, never even served in the military. This is not good stuff, but he spent his entire career in the private sector. And I say he's the best president of my entire life. Correlation, it is. 50 years ago or not, wouldn't be that way. In today's day and age, absolutely. The best and the brightest are not in our government. We'll go into it. Let's do a couple news here about what's going on, and then we'll talk specifically about this issue in China. But I do want to make it known now, you'll see some clips on it, and that MAGA, and again, I consider MAGA now a cult. And I've never mentioned anything in these videos about the Democrats, never mentioned that. And there's a couple politicians we'll talk about here, but the point being is I believe that the system in America, as I predicted, there's not going to be a political solution. It's just going to get worse and worse until you're eventually going to start getting into those phases of collapse to a revolution. I know it sounds crazy now. You're going to see it because I've seen the change. Anyway, let's start talking with what's going on in current events. And again, for those joining, I appreciate it. If anyone's got any questions on China, go for it. Let's just start with the first one here. And that is what I would like to do on this. And that is a lot of people in the MAGA group are picturing saying, look at Donald Trump. He's got his way. He's going. No, that's not what happened at all. Let me be very frank with this. To understand China, if you understand these two elements, it will help you understand China. It's not everything, but it helps you. One is if you either have a military background like me, or you understand the military. That's how China works. It's very military. If you also understand, because most people don't understand China, but if you understand a little about the Jewish culture, the Chinese are considered the Jews of Asia. There's other Asian groups that have these monikers. The Filipinos are considered the Mexicans of Asia. The Japanese are considered the Germans of Asia. But is there a commonality between the Jewish culture and the Chinese culture? There is. There is. For good or for bad, you take it like it is. Same thing military, for good or for bad. In America, the military is a separate subculture. In China, that military, that hierarchical culture, the rules, the regulations, the superiority, the patriarchy, whatever you want to call it, that encompasses the military, that is China in the civilian world in its entirety. What do I mean by that? Many of the MAGA people are thinking that Donald Trump has the cards. He's going in there to China. He's going to kick ass. Let's set the stage right now. It's the same thing if you've been in the military. Who salutes first? The junior officer or the senior officer? Or the officer or the enlisted? Who does the salute first? The junior ranking officer. The higher ranking officer, I do not initiate the salute. It's a sign of respect. You have to initiate the salute first, and I follow. It's the same thing about greetings. The lower ranking person, maybe the child looks at grandpa. Hi, good morning, grandpa. Go get grandpa's chair. It's a sign of respect. That sort of elderly patriarchy, it's also found in the military. So make it known that Donald Trump, like a Chinese emperor, Xi Jinping, has granted audience to the foreigner, or they would say the Bayangblades or the white devil, whatever you want to call it, in good or for bad. So Trump and his entourage have traveled from America, also on taxpayer dime. We don't care about tax money anymore. It's all funny money until the dollar collapses, but going all the way to the home of the emperor, Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has the upper hands in this. Now, who's going to win the deal? We'll see. My money's on China. But there's a lot of this growing, you could say, arrogance of MAGA. So, yeah, Donald Trump's going there and he's going to tell them what to do. Just by the thought that Donald Trump is traveling all the way to Beijing. If you remember, Donald Trump invited Xi Jinping to his inauguration. Xi Jinping declined. He's like, I got better things to do. You're just a lowly person. And I also want to make this point well known here, since we're on this topic. I don't enjoy being on social media. If you go to X and you read my story, you'll explain it. I wanted to get with the politicians and I want to be left alone. I'm not enjoying this at all, being on social media. The point being is when I first got on social media, and to this day, people say all the time, what are you in China for? Why'd you go? You're a traitor, this and this and this. But now Donald Trump and his entourage, you'll see they are excited as can be. You see a lot of MAGA, they're excited. We're going to China. Yeah. And they're going to do a deal with China on China's behalf and only for the global elites in America. But you think all these globalist corporations, this thought about Americans when they find out that I'm not living in America because I told them I left and I want to be left alone. They constantly have this animosity towards me. That's fine. You do what you want. But I'm telling you, these corporations going to China, they love China. Why? They love it, the money. Here's another point about the Jewish and the Chinese thing. I've said before, because we don't have too much time to talk, because these videos go for over an hour. I know they're long. But I've said before, this whole thing about the Jewish question or the Jewish angle, I've said, I think it's in two categories. I believe it's the Christian Zionist. And that's not a story I can understand so much because I'm not a biblical scholar. But I believe they are in cahoots or taking orders or working with the Jews, whatever you want to call it. But I believe it's for ideology. It's not about money. That's the Christian Zionists. The rest, and I believe the bulk in America, are working for the Israelis, the Jews, the corporations, the Jewish own. It's purely money. Why do I know that? Because they don't really have an affinity toward the Jews. Why? They just care about money. This is Donald Trump and the globalist elites. Why? Because I've seen the same thing in China. I've seen the same thing in China. These globalist corporations will sell out Americans in a heartbeat for the dollar. And I've said that many times. We don't live in a country anymore in America. We live in a globalist corporation. It's all about the money. So anyway, let's make that point first about this thing about the MAGA saying, yeah, Donald Trump is going there with the upper hand. As soon as you, under military culture and under Chinese culture, it's absolutely the norm. As the commanding officer, I don't go to your house or your office. I command you to report to my office. You come to me. That's how it works. I don't think the MAGA people get it, but they drank the Kool-Aid and they feel like this Donald Trump is this alpha man. I'm telling you, when it comes to money, Donald Trump will probably sell out American citizens for money. He's going to China on behalf of the Chinese. I'm not saying the Chinese have all the cards and are going to strong arm them, but to think that Donald Trump is going there with the upper hand, you don't understand Chinese culture. And I don't think you understand how much, and we'll get into it, how much this entire country of America has been bought and sold by these corporations and elites. All right, let's go on to the next one here. This is interesting. This is just an inside story here. Let me see, make sure everyone can see it here. So what's interesting is you have this person, Greta Van Suten, she's like, Elon Musk, on my way to Beijing, and she goes back to being friends. I've got an inside story with both Greta and Ellen. Let me tell it real quick. First, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. This is the guy who suspended me 3 times on X. I've said many times, X is no longer a private platform where you should be able to suspend people for whatever you want. X is a public political platform. Elon Musk is totally infused with the United States government to include your tax money. This is a public platform where the First Amendment should apply. Elon Musk, why did you censor a military veteran 3 times when I'm only reporting government corruption. I don't trust that guy. You can. But anyway, even Greta said, oh, Elon Musk at one time said when we invaded Venezuela, he goes, good. He goes, all dictators in America should fall. Something like that, all dictators. And I mentioned this was during the Venezuela. I wrote Elon, not like you read the message, but I said, oh, really? Well, does that apply for China? I mean, if we're going to use this same talking points about dictatorships, you don't think China, from the perspective of these MAGA talking points, would not be considered a dictator? Of course, he's labeled as a communist, a fascist, dictatorship, whatever. And I can tell you, I used to live in Shanghai. The Telsa factories, the Telsa factories, enormous there. And so just like Greta said, oh, he's going back to Beijing. Why? He's all about the money, people. I'm telling you, you're going to see it. Greta's interesting. There's a side story with her. She reached out to me a couple of years ago, and she's like, hey, David, what's this story? What's going on? This is the typical. It's basically weak people who don't care or whatever. But I mean, she was nice to me on email, but I said, Greta, here's my story. If I could get an interview with you, great. But if you don't believe me or whatever, just repost me, because she was following me on X before. I said, just repost my thing. Never did. So I don't know, Greta. I would say maybe one of the reasons America's falling apart is because Americans don't support Americans have lost their patriotic duty to support military veterans. And I admit it, we worked for the military industrial complex. So I admit it. At the time, I didn't know it, but once I did, I left the military, whatever. But the point is, if you live in a country and you fail to patriotically support military veterans, that's a good formula for collapse. So Greta knows about me. She didn't even repost any of my stuff. So Greta, now she's got something about Elon Musk going to China, making money. This system's going to collapse, people. Give it time. Let's go to the next one here. It's just interesting news. This is Donald Trump. Now, remember, if you go back to my videos on Donald Trump when I first came out, I said Donald Trump is the best president in my entire life. Have I changed my mind? It's hard. I mean, again, I don't believe in voting. I don't believe in voting. I left America. But I'm not. We're going to talk a bit about Thomas Massie. There's Dan Bilzerian. Okay, there could be, and I've always said the best is yet to come. But I could say Donald Trump is turning into a pile of dog shit. I mean, that's the best I could do. But I am not interested in the Democrats, nor have I ever been interested in the Republicans. But like I said, the best is yet to come. It'll get better as the violence comes up. But Donald Trump, let's look what he says. And there's a video on this too. He says that there's a quick video. I'll see you later. He's not even a little bit remotely about Americans' financial situation, this thing. This is coming from the rich billionaire who eats steak and lobster with his rich kids at Mar-a-Lago, who's a repeat draft dodger with his kids. Now, I knew this before I supported him. But at the end of the day, sometimes, like I said, the system's rigged because they say it's a democracy, but you can only choose A or B, right? And so I still put it down. He was the best choice I could ever see, but he's deviating from what he promised. This Iran war, this would never been. He never mentioned this in his campaign. So anyway, I'm trying to bounce between two things. But anyway, I hope everyone gets it. I am absolutely dissatisfied with Donald Trump, remarkably, but I'm not like I'm going for the Democrats. So anyway, that's Donald Trump. Let's look at his family here and his cronies. This is sort of like, does this not have a sense of grifter? So again, this is the evil China. And these people are so excited to go to China. Like, man, look at Laura Trump, who I don't consider to be a traditional woman. This is, again, these value systems in MAGA. These are not traditional women. These women love money. They love power. They love fame. That's not what traditional women are. Traditional women, just so you know, like I'm not a fan of this Erica Kirk. Traditional women, they're submissive women. Yes, they're quiet. They listen to their husband. They have children, their mothers. Now, if you're a woman, you're like, fuck that. I don't want to do that. Well, then best of luck to you, but you're not a traditional woman. That's fine. You're a feminist. Feminism isn't all that bad. Hi, Gonk, I see you. But the point is we have to start understanding leadership. And part of leadership is you have to understand these vocabulary terms. But anyway, going back to these people now are so excited to go to China. and they're going to grift and make money. That's the number one reason why Donald Trump and his gang is going to China. They want to make money. But if before they said China's the enemy and this and that, they don't care. These people look like absolute grifters. As the middle class gets wrecked in America, don't worry. These grifters are going to make more and more money, and they have no sympathy or care of the world. The military veterans are middle class. It's going to get worse, people. It's really going to get worse. Let's go to the next one. I just want to do a couple news on here. So this is also about the grifting, like I said. So this is, look, I don't even know who this woman is. She's Monica Crawford. Don't they look cool? She's like, I'm going to China. Look at her. She's like, they are so excited. And they're like, yeah, I can't wait. And you know when they're going to go to China? You know why they're going to China? They're excited. They can't wait to see the organ harvesting, the Xinjiang prisoners, the people in poverty. Now, I can say good stuff about China. Don't fool yourself. But you kind of feel a grip. Like all these people in America, like, China's evil, China's evil. And now they're like so excited. There's another reason too that, and we're going to get into this clip real quick. There's another reason why I was more popular before Trump got elected and now. Because before Trump got elected, I would say stuff like the government is corrupt and this and that. And Trump and his team fueled that. And that's where I was getting a lot higher. My X count blew past 10,000 fast and then boom, suspended. But the point being is now that Trump is in charge, they don't like people saying the government's corrupt. But notice that about this woman. She is just absolutely excited. I'm going to China. Look at me. I'm so cool. It's got a sense of this elite grifting class. We're going to keep going. I'll show you some more. So remember the Chinese spy that happened? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Let me make sure. What do I kept saying about China? Look at this top. I said, what is the difference between the Chinese government and the Chinese people? And as a China expert, not much. That's not negative. That's not positive, though. I never said negative. I never said positive. That's not a compliment. That's not an insult. I'm just saying the Chinese people and the Chinese government are not that much different. Now you might say, but David, when you say Chinese people, who are you referring to? Like born and raised in China? Yes. Anyone else? Chinese people. What about Chinese American? Chabudo, that means about it. Absolutely. The Chinese, and I've done other videos on it, but I'm just telling you, sooner or later, just like MAGA wants to make fun of the liberals saying that gender is not real from the liberals, sooner or later, I hate to break it to you, but race is real. It's a very easily talked about subject in China, because I've never seen a society as racist as China. Again, that's not an insult. That's not a compliment. But man, the racism is unbelievable. And the Chinese ability to freely talk about race makes Americans look like we're kindergartens. Like we're like little kindergartens. We're very uncomfortable talking about the topic of race. The Chinese have no problem. They have no problem talking about race. So in China, not only is gender real, race is real. So the MAGA people, I've said many times, they want to say, yeah, look at these retarded, libtard liberals. They don't believe that gender's real. Well, MAGA, you don't believe race is real, because I did that topic about Vivek Ramaswamy. The MAGA wants to make it think that race isn't real. Don't be a racist. Their thinking is we don't care about race. You know what the MAGA cares about? Money. And as long as you're rich like Vivek, they don't care. Why? Because it's a corporation. Anyway, let's just go back to that. We'll talk about that a little bit. What did I say? My solution to that is you don't give any of these people citizenships, but I don't have a problem with the Chinese. They're in many ways, let me bring this up. In many ways, they're good people, but good fences make good neighbors. I just would never give them citizenships. All right, let's go to this one. This is a little also about the inside story here. So when I first came on board, this guy Gorka reached out to me on email. He said, "Hey, David, give me a free copy of your book." So I sent him I have an online, what is it? Yeah, an ebook, an audio book. So I sent it via email to him. Never heard back from him. And then he blocks me, because this was my first X account. Then he blocks me on X. Thanks, Gorka. But notice he's putting Tucker, according at least the general, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, both been named as domestic terrorism. Doesn't surprise me. I'm named as a terrorist too by the FBI. And now the question is why? That's a good question. But there's one thing that I have in my corner. I'm not technically hiding. I am the one that's pounding on the FBI's door. Why am I on the FBI terror? So when people say they want to know the truth of my story, well, my story from my side is, hello, my name's David Baumblatt. I want answers. What has the government said? Nothing. Not one politician. But anyway, this is Gorka. There's something about this guy Gorka, besides the story I've said, he just comes across as a piece of shit. It's just me. There's something about this guy. I think he was born in England, which okay. I'm okay with Europeans coming to America and becoming citizens. There's just something about him that I don't trust. And of course, like I said, him blocking me on X. Why would you do that? I'm a military veteran asking for help. I guess maybe he didn't like the book. But anyway, it is what it is. Let's go on to the next thing. We're almost done here. This is just sort of basic stuff. This is another patriot in America who's so busy thanking military veterans that he's decided to block me. I get blocked all the time by people I didn't even know that I followed before. Like it just came up randomly. I saw a comment on them, and then I said, all right, let me respond. And it just says, hey, I can't respond to them. And then I find out that I'm blocked. But there's Tim Cass, who I'm sure likes to say and I have so many of these. It's unbelievable. And I've said, if you're a private citizen, you block me, no big deal. If you're a private citizen and you spout patriotic stuff, you support military veterans, well, then you're not abiding by your principles. If you're a politician or government, I'm not asking for help. I'm asking you to do your duty. I want to know. I've said, if you go to my X, to read I do this all the time. People don't know my story. The best is go to my X on that pinned video right above it. I know it's a lot of wording, but it kind of goes through my story. You're telling me no politician or Trump administration is answered to me? They know about me. They've ignored me. Let's just do one final thing, then we'll get with today's topic. And this is, I just thought that, here, this is another one. So Remember I kept saying about the politicians. There's two politicians, even though, like I said, I'm not a big fan of voting anymore. I see a golden tulip. I'm not a big fan of anymore in voting, but two politicians I'd probably call out would be Thomas Massie and then Dan Bilzerian. There could be others, I don't know. But again, I've always said the best is yet to come. Dan Bilzerian, I don't think he knows anything about me. I've just started following him, but I think he's going in the right direction. We'll see. But again, guns and ammo are going to come. Thomas Massie, I think he's going in the right direction. Thomas Massie blocked me. So he's got two accounts. He's got his account, and then he's got his running for Congress or re-election account. That other account, he blocked me. I have no clue. It's just weird. Again, I look forward to getting off social media. It's sort of like a high school drama club back here. That's why I left America. This problem ultimately, remember what I'm saying, it's not going to be solved until guns and ammo come in. You could believe me now or believe me later, but if you actually think voting is going to change this system, it won't ever happen. So anyway, this is just another moron American. I meet these people all the time. So I said, Thomas, why didn't you block me? Then I get this all the time. These people, he didn't block you. So these would be the Americans who, let me bring this down here. These would be the Americans who know more about China than I do, more about the FBI. You get it. I had a friend of mine. He's like, David, I'm warning you, don't go on social media. I've always considered myself above average intelligence, not very high intelligent, but a solid above average intelligence. And he's like, you're not going to like social media. The amount of retardation you're going to come into from the American public is beyond belief. It really is. And I think that's how it's designed, to keep Americans stupid so the global elite control us. But anyway, this is a person who said, he didn't block you. Well, I don't know. What is this then? This is the Thomas Massie for Congress. It looks like he's from him right there. Again, this is his second count. He's blocked me on this. I would say this is his running for Congress account. His main account, though, it didn't block me, but this account did. Why would he do that? I have no clue. Part of me is just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. You get like this. Like, I think a lot of people, remember in leadership is lead, follow, or get out of the way. Three things. Make sure you remember that. It's a good leadership phrase. If there's an issue, lead, take charge. And oh, by the way, many things are solved with violence. Sorry to say, I know people also like to talk out their asshole in America. They're always against violence. We do violence everywhere in America. I mean, we like watch boxing fights, UFC. A lot of the MAGA people love Iran just getting bombed to shit. We like the death penalty. We like shooting people. America would never have been formed without a violent revolution. So, violence is part of it, and it just is what it is. So there's lead. Follow is just shut up. Find someone who's got high morals and high competence and just follow them. Or 3, just get out of the way. And that's why when you physically leave the country like I did 16 years ago, that's probably a good solid evidence that I probably wanted to be left alone. I just want to be left alone. But the FBI continues to fuck with me like the cowards they are, and they don't have the balls. I'll do other videos. I don't think the American people realize the amount of low testosterone, low morality, and low competence that's happening in our CIA and the FBI. The best and brightest are not there. Okay, let's go on today's subject. If anyone's got any questions, go for it. This is what we're going to do. Let's just start out with the opening statement here with Donald Trump. Again, you can tell by my attitude, I'm sort of losing it with Donald Trump, but what are you going to do, people? What are you going to do? And I've said that before, what are you going to do? But people get nervous about it. But voting is not going to work.
Message to President Xi as it relates to the Iran war.
Well, I think, number one, we're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the block.
Okay, so he's been relatively good. I just want, what I'm trying to do is look how he's talking about Xi, the enemy, the communist, the dictator, he's talking pretty good to him, don't you think? What do you talk to your superior? Now, I'm not saying Xi Jinping and Donald Trump are like superior subordinate, but if you look at the situation, what's happening is Donald Trump's, at the end of the day, he's a CEO and he's running a corporation. He's not a president. He's a CEO. You're not a citizen. You're an employee, and America is not a country. It's a corporation. So you have to go in his mindset. It is all about the money. CEOs are under constant pressure with profits and losses from the shareholders. And what is Xi Jinping in China toward that economic lifeline of America? Oh, yeah. So all these dumb MAGA people are like, man, we're going to raise the tariffs. We're going to close down our factories abroad. They're coming. Ain't going to happen, people. Ain't going to happen. Why? It's too expensive. At the end of the day, as much as Donald Trump talks about the negativities of illegal immigration, which I like that, when it comes to legal immigration, because it's all about the money, oh, he's a fan. He's an absolute fan. So that's why he's very soft on China.
Okay, no problem. They get a lot of their oil from that area. We've had no problem, and he's been a friend of mine. He's been somebody that we get along with.
Okay, he's been a friend of mine. We get someone along with. Okay, all right, we'll see. I think people are starting to realize this whole country is one big grift. This is also the same president. Don't you think that if the Iran war was important, he probably should have said on his campaigns like, Mr. President Trump, if you get elected, what do you think you're going to do? I'm telling you, if I'm president, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon for the security and safety of America, perhaps the security safety of the world. I will never allow Iran to have a weapon. Well, what are you going to do about it, future possible President Donald Trump? I am going to go to war and I'll bomb the shit out of him, but it's going to be full war. That's a pretty big statement. He left that whole fucking thing out. You're not telling me that would influence you? Would have influenced me. But anyway, he's a bit of a salesman grifter with his shit coins. But anyway, let's keep going.
And I think you're going to see that good things are going to happen. This is going to be a very exciting trip. A lot of good things are going to happen. Mr. President.
Oh, he's excited. I'm telling you, he likes this part. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is also a little bit of a dictator. So, and it comes a little with the territory. As long as he's putting America first, which he's not. So the difference is Putin, he's a dictator. Xi Jinping, the dictator. A true general, there's books called Gods and Generals. Generals, many times, are dictators. But as long as you put your people first, you sometimes take the good with the bad. Now, if you're going to be a dictator like Trump and he likes it, and you're not putting America first, I'm telling you, I can do a many. Look at me as a military veteran here. I've been blocked by Trump admin people. What's the person's name? Like Roger Stone, stuff blocks me. Why? All these people block me. They're not America first. I could tell you, Xi Jinping, however tyrannical you think China is, and it can be sometimes tyrannical, As a foreigner in China, I am telling you, it is China first. And I'm talking racially. The Chinese, not only are Chinese citizens first, let me do this a little bit. Not only are Chinese citizens first, but Chinese diaspora overseas, so we're going to say a Chinese American, still would come before me. Not even close. So you have a white person living in China for whatever, 50 years. But they're not Chinese, but they're living in China, man, paying their taxes, China, China, China. To the Chinese government and the Chinese people, a Chinese American that was born and raised in America that speaks zero Chinese is still more Chinese, has more of a loyalty. You go down the line, a sense of belonging, a sense of duty from the government to take care of them than a white person or a black person or Indian person in China. That's how much race is. It is a ethno state. Is that bad? Not really. I mean, I think white people could learn a little from that. I think we've gone overboard on the opposite direction. Anyway, let's keep going.
He needs to intervene at all with the Iranians? Do you think he can help in any way?
No, I don't think we need any help with Iran.
Yeah, Iran's been an absolute clusterfuck, Donald. This is, again, when you're taking military advice from Donald Trump, who has a family lineage of dodging the draft. Go to his grandfather who escaped the draft, the military draft in Germany. His kids never served. Probably not a good idea, but we'll see. But that I didn't mind that, because when I supported Donald Trump, I assumed we were not going to be on the warpath. But if Donald Trump was this Medal of Honor winner, this military veteran, I still would disagree with it, but it would influence me. But now we got a draft dodger who's like, man, I'm pro-war. I want to get in all these wars. Does anyone not think that is the most fucked up coincidence here? No, not strange to anyone? Okay. The MAGA cult thinks no big deal.
We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise. Their Navy's gone. Their Air Force is gone. Every single element of their war machine is gone. They've killed a lot of people. They've killed 42,000.
Okay, I guess we won, Donald. Let's pack up and go home then, little Donald. Take your toys. Little Donald, take your toys and go home.
People at least over the last month and a half. We win.
Mr. President.
Well, there you go, people. We won the war. Congratulations, whatever that. That reminds me of, what is it, George Bush, not the senior, the junior, said mission accomplished. We don't know what we're doing. I say again, absolutely don't know what we're doing. Let me do a couple things on this, and that is, let me see if we played this
weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation.
Okay, I want to play this. I think this is really important. This was the clip. Let me bring this up. Donald Trump is really getting loony now. I don't know. It could be. So part about intelligence, what we do is and there are groups in the U.S. intelligence community that focus on foreign leaders' health, mental health, family, relationships, everything. Even when these delegations come to America, and as Americans, we are the most susceptible to insider threats just because we have so much immigration. You know, there could be, whereas other societies are much more closed off. So I could go into it more and more, but I don't want to confuse everyone. Donald Trump is getting old. So I don't know, maybe it's a health issue, but what he says right here, this was America first. This is the person. So either he was an absolute scumbag and lied to us, which is possible, or people do. Or he's compromised or bribed or something. But you're telling me as a MAG, you're like, that's America first, man. That's exactly what I voted for. So again, he's talking about the Iran war, and he's talking about the American citizens' financial situation. Now, remember, this is coming from a billionaire. He's not going to, his family's not going to fit. These people are filthy rich. Inflation, high, they're not going to feel the pain. The middle class, you're going to feel the pain. All right, let's see what he says here. So let's just start really quick again.
Go ahead.
When you're negotiating with Iran, Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing.
I hope everyone heard that. There was background noise. She's like, what are Americans I think I'm not pronouncing it right or said, but she said what are Americans' financial decisions or what are Americans' financial situation influencing your decision on the Iranian war? The point being is, do you care about Americans' financial situation? You know, this, and we're talking also not just the gas prices, inflation, but this war is expensive, people. Tax money. Who's paying for all this stuff? Eventually, the debt continues to go up. Someone's going to have to pay. Meaning, what about the fiscal responsibilities and what about the pressures that are going on to the middle class? Again, Donald Trump is a rich person. He's not going to feel it. But does he care about middle class? Let's see what he says. I'm a little shocked, but this is starting to become norm now.
That matters when I'm talking about Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing that motivates me.
Did you say earlier that the only...
So what they did is the reporter, they wanted to, and they did this, and usually you would think the press is against Donald Trump, which I agree. I do agree. They were good with Obama. They're bad with Trump. I get it. But the press was giving Donald a softball here. They repeated the question a second time just in case he wants to change his answer, because his answer sounds like dog shit. That's not a good answer from a leader. That I couldn't imagine doing that for. I don't know where Donald Trump, and I've always gave Donald Trump props for being very good at leadership. I don't know whether he's getting older, he's bribed, he's compromised, or what. But this is going out on left field, what he says. So same question again. Donald Trump giving him an opportunity to maybe change what he just said. And what did Donald Trump do?
Thing that matters to you when it comes to Iran is a nuclear weapon. You're not considering the financial impact of this war on Americans.
You are not considering the financial impact of the war on American citizens. That came out pretty clear. This is the second time Donald Trump should now have no, back to West Point, please stand and rise, sir, attention, attention. No excuse, sir. This is the time. There should not be any excuse. Let's hear what Donald Trump said. And if you're MAGA and you said, I disagree with you, David, that's exactly what I voted for, then our concept of America first, of patriotism, or who we saw, we are in different universes. Then, like I said, we have to say, what does patriotism mean? What does America first mean? Let's go back to Donald Trump, though, and see what he says. I'm getting less and less shocked, is what I'm saying.
The most important thing by far, including whether our stock market, which, by the way, is at an all-time...
Who was the other video? I'm forgetting these fucking people's name. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Remember when they asked her about the Epstein files, something like that, and she said something like, the stock market is through the roof. You're like, we're talking about the Epstein files, the criminality of pedophilia, but more importantly, the national security. What the hell does the stock market have to do anything? So we have two subjects at hand. First, Donald Trump. We have the war in Iran, which I don't think is important. And we're going to explain that. And we have Americans' financial situation. He's like Pam Bondi. Did you hear about the stock market lately? That's not what we were asking about. I guess Donald Trump is trying to say, well, don't worry about the financial situation, the stock market. So the problem is the stock market many times is relegated to a small percentage of American citizens. Most middle-class people are not invested in the stock markets. And that's what, when the dollar gets bashed, the middle class is done. And the certain assets like crypto and gold, I'm telling you, are going to go up. But anyway, maybe that was his deflection to say, the financial situation is actually doing awesome. The stock market's up, which I disagree with him. But let's go to see what he says.
Time high, but including whether or not our stock market goes up or down a little bit, the most important thing by far is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Don't you think he probably should have said that on the campaign trail? Meaning it sounds like this Iranian war is a big fucking deal. Now, if he would have said, now I know a lot of MAGA shitbags are saying there was 20, 30, 40 years ago, he talked about it. Well, I don't know. I don't have time to talk about 20. When you are, it's like the job interview. When you're doing a job interview, which is the campaign, that's the time to say, what are you going to do with the country? They're your priorities. But that would have been something good he should have said on the campaign trail, this importance of preventing Iran from a nuclear weapon. And if they don't, then we're going to go full scare war. He probably should have said that.
There's pressure on Americans and prices right now.
Every American understands.
Americans, how they're feeling about
every American. Are you listening?
Every American understands this. This is also part about leadership. I don't have time for the story now. It's an interesting leadership story, but we also know about groupthink, where he might also be surrounded by yes men, and they're not notice this is also the part of dictators too. It happens too in China and very these intimidating dictatorship positions. And I'm not saying I'm not against dictatorship. They say the best form of government is a benevolent dictator, but he might now, one reason why he's just gone off the range here, he might be surrounded by people that are either purposely or just unintentionally giving him 24/7 bad advice. The American public are absolutely behind you, Donald Trump. They're absolutely behind this war. They don't care about inflation. Maybe. But he just said all the Americans are with this. And well, I don't know where he got that from.
Every American understands, and they just had a poll, like 85%, which is surprising. It's only that they understand that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Okay, we got to go on because we're doing time. But I say this, leadership 101. If Donald Trump all of a sudden said, my son Brandon is enlisting in the military, and to you MAGA people who thought because his height is too tall, I've said it before, you're retarded, he can. But if he all of a sudden said, my son Brandon is enlisting in the military and he's going to go frontline combat arms and we're sending him to Iran because I'm Donald Trump and I'm telling the American people that this is of national security priority one importance, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and we will do whatever we have to do. And if that means my son Brandon is going to die, then means it. I've said before, I still am against the war. That would influence me. This is part of leadership. You're doing it. This is a lot with intelligence community when you're doing the entire background investigation, understanding that person from thick and thin. The problem is he's a repeat draft dodger. His family before him dodged the draft. None of his kids serve in the military. None of his kids will, and none of them are going to die. So this whole thing about it's so important, I don't know. Then why don't you instead of convincing the American people that this war's so important, why don't you convince Barron, your little baby boy, that it's so important, and do what I did, unlike you piece of shit fucking draft dodger, have him enlist in the military, send him to Iran, and then he dies. That would influence me, and I think that would influence a lot of American citizens. Not saying you would maybe change your mind, but it would influence us. He's not going to do that. Of course not. Okay, let's go to the next. What I want to do is let's talk quickly about this spy thing. It's retarded, and I've said many times. The main issue is, and I'm telling to the American people, this is with the far left and the far right. You're both uncomfortable with race. It is what, well, maybe not the far right. I guess you'd say neo-Nazis. They're probably fine. But everyone really is very uncomfortable about race. I'm sorry to break it to you, but as the American system collapses more and more and more, the topic of race is going to come up because we're going to split. The 50 states of America will eventually split. And it's sort of like if you've ever been to prison, guess what? Race is real. You're kind of segregated in your race. But I've said many times, one of the best defensive policies you could take toward the China is not allow the Chinese citizens to become American citizens. End of story. So we'll see the video quickly, but I'm telling you, there's not much difference between Chinese people and the Chinese government. Even the Chinese people that are born and raised in America, they won't admit it. But at the end of the day, China's their motherland. For the same reason, they'll admit, I'm Chinese American. We don't have time. I could talk about the other races, the African Americans, the Japanese, the European, stuff like that. But I'm telling you, as a China expert, even the Chinese that are born and raised in America will still identify as a Chinese American. as an Asian American. They will still identify as their race in their heart. And I'm telling you, China's their motherland. It's a very politically incorrect thing to say. I know people are uncomfortable, but till then, have fun. You're going to learn it the hard way. Anyway, let's go through this.
Eileen Wang agreeing to plead guilty after being charged with acting as an agent for the Chinese government. DOJ says from 2020 through 2022, Eileen and her then fiance ran a website called U.S. News Center that branded itself as a news source for Chinese Americans. Wang resigning after the charge, quote, "The decision is personal in nature and does not reflect my love and commitment to Arcadia, which will always remain strong. But when confronted by our affiliate to give her residents an answer, Eileen refused."
Excuse me, Miss Wong. Can we speak with you about these allegations? Is there anything you want to say to constituents?
Political strategist, lawyer, and someone who lived in China for years, Katie Zachariah joins me now. Katie, U.S. Attorney.
Okay, so I know this woman a little bit, not much. She was there as a lawyer working for, I think, a news corporation in Beijing or a news agency in Beijing or a corporation doing legal. She's only been there a couple of years, but she speaks the politically correct version of China. So either she's still a moron or she's just being politically correct. But hear what she says.
Emissary said it should, quote, terrify Americans that she was able to rise to the highest levels of local office. So, Katie, how the heck did that happen?
Well, if you go out to Arcadia, which I visited a number of times, it's basically become Little China. And I don't mean the cute San Francisco Chinatown that we all were familiar with. This actually feels like a version of Beijing. And what do I mean by that? They don't speak English. They eat complete.
You ever see that too, even from MAGA? It's always, as long as you speak English, like that's all we are. I've always said, what's an American? Just English? I don't know, then what's different than us with Australians? In fact, I know a lot of Chinese people, they are absolutely fluent in the English language, but we always hear this stuff integrate. Just to make this, we don't have a lot of time, but let me just do this. Try to do this. How do you, as a man, truly integrate and become a woman? Probably never. You know, whatever, you're gonna wear pink dresses. Not like, how are you gonna integrate as a woman to become a man? A man who will always be a man. I guess he could learn feminine stuff. A woman can learn masculine stuff. But at the end of the day, you're a man, you're a woman. Guess what? These immigrants come in, they're just like, as long as you speak English, that's about it. No, it's a lot more. I speak fluent Chinese. Am I Chinese? I can tell you something. Am I integrated in the Chinese community? As a foreigner, I am. I guess you could say I'm never going to integrate though. Why? Because I'm not Chinese. But you hear this bullshit. Just speak English and that's fine. No, it's more than just language.
Like local Chinese food that they source right from China. And honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find any English speaking people in the whole vicinity of the San Gabriel Valley, which has essentially been taken over by the Chinese. And I don't actually mean that hyperbolically, Todd. I mean that because I've lived in China. I go to Arcadia to get local Chinese food and maybe refresh my Mandarin, but it doesn't feel like the United States. So it's no surprise to me that we had someone who was acting on behalf of Beijing as a foreign agent running Arcadia because the place feels like China.
You lived in China. You know how the CCP operates. Katie, is this just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Americans being tricked into allowing, quite frankly, for lack.
So I don't see this. I didn't see this whole video. I hope they get to the point. So what do you do, Katie? What's the solution? Well, they need to learn English and they need to eat American food and keep going, Katie. Good luck. No, I'll tell you what I do, and I've said it anytime. Let's see what Katie says.
Of a better phrase, Chinese spies to infiltrate our government at the local, state, and federal level.
Yes, Todd, and with these sanctuary jurisdictions similar to California, there needs to be a wholesale review of not just legal permanent residents, but people who are here from adversarial countries. We just had, for instance, an Iranian arms dealer living just down the.
Okay, so I think she's saying we just need to vet them more. just do a background check. Now, that's what the FBI's job is. We'll do this on high-level people, the vetting background. Now, of course, it's simple if we're just looking for criminal behavior, like if they have past. But what are you looking for if you're looking for someone who's going to be a patriotic American or not? It's interesting. I mean, I've got the answer simple, but the point is, if you push MAGA hard on legal immigration, as long as they got money, they're just like, well, they pay their taxes, they speak English, they have some money. I guess they eat American food. I guess that's about it. It's interesting. Then what are the steps to allow people? I'll do it real quick when the video's over.
Road from me, whose green card needs to be reevaluated by USCIS under the Department of Homeland Security. There has to be a complete takedown of these green card holders, and they need to be sent back home. This woman, Eileen Wong, she's only getting 10 years. That's actually kind of offensive as a United States citizen. This person was acting as a foreign agent on behalf of the CCP, Todd. There should be no grace. They literally should be sent back to the People's Republic of China.
So concerning. And you have to think, if this is happening in one town in California, it could be happening in others, because I hate to bring up Mr. Swalwell because he's no longer in the California governor's race, but the leader on the Democratic side was tied to a Chinese spy, and I think that tells you everything you need to know. From one coast to the other, happening today, the House back in session for the first time.
Okay, we got one more video. This is an assistant director of the FBI forum. We're talking about this, but I'm going to put it very simple. There are different levels when it comes to visas and green cards. I get that. And we don't have time to talk about it. But my view would be very simple. I would never give them citizenship. And without that citizenship, and I've said, I've been on programs before, I don't like the idea or approve of the idea of foreign nationals serving in our military. So you're not a U.S. citizen. So you cannot hold any office, to include that. We have foreign nationals actually can be law enforcement officers. All that needs to, and again, none of this is going to work until guns and ammo. Everyone's like, we need to change this. The system continues to get worse, people. But for grins and giggles, I'll tell you what my solution would be. But until guns and ammo happens, a radical shift in the country, a split, then these new laws will apply. Until then, not. But I would just say simple as this, that these people from these non-European countries, non-Christian countries. So what is America? Christianity, European, freedom-loving. That's why we would look different if a person from Canada or Britain or Germany or France came to America. Why? Those are our forefathers. That's who made America. So I would look upon them differently, but we'll just stick with the Chinese. I just never would give them Chinese citizenship. And without that citizenship, they can never serve in the military. They can never vote. They can never go on law enforcement. They can never hold public office. And if we have to change the law, that there are certain abilities of non-U.S. citizens to obtain, that's next. You have to be a U.S. citizen. That's at least a major change right there. Then we could review about green cards and visas. But when I see these people, because I say again, unless you're of the Chinese ethnicity, you will never become a Chinese citizen. Ever. That's pretty smart for the Chinese. That's why China many times has a superior system of, you could say, domestic intelligence versus America. Why? Because we have open doors. Come on in. Here's a green card. Here's an American citizenship. We have Chinese citizens that are running to be congressmen or senators. And of course, they're saying they're pro-MAGA. I don't care what your political stance is. I just never would have gave them an American citizenship to start. We don't have a lot of time to talk on it, but that would be probably the strongest and most powerful move to protect America's interest. There is zero path of citizenship. This is where I do think Donald Trump is going in the right direction. I think he wants to ban birthright citizenship. Absolutely. So these people come, there is zero. It's like China. If you move to China, there is zero path of citizenship for you. It doesn't matter. You get married, you have kids. You will never in your entire life become a Chinese citizen. That's a pretty lockstep policy to keep China protected from foreign influence. I would implement the same policy. Let's do one last video. This is a former FBI guy.
National Security and U.S. Intelligence, now Chief Investigative Officer at Global Reach. Thank you so much for taking the time. This story is almost unbelievable. How does something like this happen? A, she was able to operate like this? And B, how do you become the mayor?
Yeah, you said it best. This reads like something out of some thriller novel, some spy novel, or some TV series. But here's the thing, when we look at the charges that were leveled and the facts that have been presented, it's clear that we see another example of China trying to control the political narrative inside our country, even at the local.
I just want to pause it really quick. We're focusing on China and it is a threat. But if you ask me what country has the most amount of influence, foreign influence in America, I would go to Israel. It just is what it is. But that's a protected subject. But and there's also many other countries, but I would say Israel would be number one. China could be number two, just because I'd have to think about it, just because their size, their monetary, whatever. But I still would probably put Israel as number one foreign influence, but that's not something we could talk about or do.
Level. And when we see a person go from a city councilor to a mayor and allegedly being under control of China, this is because, local cities, smaller municipalities, they lack the vetting processes. They lack the media scrutiny. So something like this can get passed, folks. And then you have something that is no longer theoretical. You have an agent of the PRC sitting at the helm of a local government.
Again, assuming all of these allegations are true, where would this go? What kind of asset would she have been for the People's Republic of China?
Well, this is all about narrative control for the PRC, and that's what we have to remember. They want to control the narrative and normalize the things that the PRC is doing, saying, and even blunting criticism. That's their goal here. This is a little different than espionage. When we think of traditional espionage, we're talking about the stealing of national security or national defense information, secrets. This is about influence, and it cuts to the heart of our democracy, especially when it's targeting our local municipalities.
And I believe Arcadia has a large Asian American population, so you can understand why this website might have been operated. But I guess the question is this kind of a sophisticated tactic? In a way, it's almost you don't recognize it, but then in another.
We got to move on to the video. This is what I'm going to tell you to the American people. The weakness, and China knows this, but it's not just China, it's other countries in the world, to include Israel, that one of the biggest weaknesses that Americans have is the ability to talk about race. And I've said it before, the ability to talk about race in China is through the roof. The topics in China about race will make the normal American very, very uncomfortable. So what do I mean? It doesn't matter. That's why I ended the video short. It doesn't matter how you slice or dice it. Even the reporter, he named the people in that city Asian Americans, or maybe he said Chinese. Even the reporters recognize that race is real. So what am I saying? However you slice or dice this, if America's future is white minority, it's over. You could be a liberal. I'm telling you, people, and why. I'm probably one of the very few white American men that knows what it's like to live as a racial minority. 99% of white men and white women in America have never experienced at least living long-term as a racial minority. When you do, race is real. I don't care if it's Chinese. I don't care if it's Indian. I don't care if it's African. Multiracial societies don't work, and they will work together to supplant, subvert the other races. Don't believe me? Have fun. Wait until the white population drops under 10%, and you're going to listen to what I'm saying. But the reason why these countries are allowed to do this politically as well, because it is such a taboo topic to talk about. And for the same reason that the MAGA makes fun of the left, that they can't talk about gender, meaning gender isn't real. Well, MAGA doesn't like to talk about race. Okay, so I want to go, let me do this through real quick though before. This is an interesting video. Remember I talked about patriotism, loyalty, race? Okay, let's see where this is going to go.
States in the Philippines for you. Say we're neither side. In a morally neutral, blame-free hypothetical conflict between the United States and China and the United States and the Philippines for you, say where neither side is right or wrong, to which country is your allegiance?
Philippines.
Your allegiance is to the Philippines. Why is that?
Because it's where I was born. So.
When did you move to the United States?
I moved here when I was 4, but I have family over there.
You have citizenship, remind me, in the U.S.?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
But if the United States were to go to war with the Philippines, you would side with the Philippines?
No, I would myself.
You would just end it even though you wouldn't be involved in the war?
Yeah.
So assuming the strength of the respective militaries is in this hypothetical remain the same, you would just end it?
Yeah. Why not?
Why? What's
Why not? I mean,
yeah,
do I
that's
have
not
to
an
have a
argument.
reason?
Why not? But you would side with the Philippines. That was your original answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Under this current president, my allegiance will lie with China. I think in that hypothetical, it depends on what the political climate is, and it depends on how the U.S. treats illegal immigration.
You have permanent residency.
Yes.
And that's through your husband?
My husband's American, yes.
And are you planning to have kids?
I am, and if I do, they would be American, yes.
Well, I don't want to change the subject so much, but typical Asian woman, white, I guarantee your husband's white husband, white passport, white kids, but I'm telling you, they're not going to have loyalty. I don't even like talking about this subject so much. You want to know? It's not because I don't feel uncomfortable, but I really see a lot of white people. It's that deer in the headlights. And it's like, and that's when I see the white population dropping in America, I'm like, good, just because I could tell you something. If you talk to me before I went to China, after, I've radically changed how I view race. Why? Because when you live as a racial minority, your entire world will change. This is the most important part of the video. We're going to do this. Now, what did I say? In America, just so you know, this is, and I wrote this in the book, it's very simple. The biggest threat to America is domestic. It's as clear as day. Global government, global corporations, the biggest threat. China is the biggest threat overseas, foreign threat, number one. But they're not threatening to destroy America. What they want to do, though, is they want to destroy the hegemon of America. So they're tired of being the boss. They're tired of America being the boss and telling them what to do, particularly in Asia. Makes sense to me. You could believe that, not believe that. It is what it is. So again, the number one threat to America that's taking away your faith, family, freedom is global government, global corporations. The biggest threat overseas, I still would put it as China, but their goal isn't to destroy America and become the next global superpower. Not at all. You don't get. But what they do want to do is become a regional power, particularly in Asia, to kick out America. And they're tired of America telling them what to do. And that's going to happen whether you like it or not, because the American empire is going down. Now, this is what I want you to do. You're trying to figure out who's in charge. When Donald Trump goes to, so you, as you know, or maybe you not know, in China, the power is with the government. We have two systems. I've said this many times. We have nationalism, which is me, and we have globalism, which is you. You're like, no, I'm not. Yes, if you're an American, it's a globalist. Not with Donald Trump. He's a globalist. This is what I'm saying. This is where the ship is sinking. He campaigned as a nationalist. He's a globalist. So the point being is in China, the government has the power. Don't fool yourself. Xi Jinping has the power. The Communist Party has the power. Even though they call it communism, I refer to China more as fascism, but that's a different story. In America, who has the power? The corporations. And guess what? These are our masters. Now, of course, these are the CEOs. These are just the front master puppets. The real masters are behind the scenes, the shareholders, the BlackRocks, the companies that own the company. So the CEOs are many times the elected politicians of the corporate world. These are our masters, people.
You're winning the trade. You spent the last 2 years telling the American public you're winning the trade war with China. You've slapped tariffs on their goods. You've threatened, escalated, walked back, escalated again. And now you're flying to Beijing. Not with army generals, not with diplomats, but with 16 of America's most powerful CEOs. Now, what does it tell you when a sitting US president needs to bring a billionaire army just to sit across Xi Jinping? But let's first focus on who's on that plane to Beijing, and more importantly, why. Well, first up, there's Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Most Apple.
So this is what I'm trying to tell you here. These are our masters. This is very different in China or Russia. These are, now you might say that's great. Well, I'm just telling you, these people are globalists. The shareholders, many times these shareholders aren't even Americans. Tim Cook, I work with Apple factories. So when you're in America, like, I'm going to buy Apple, that's American. No, that's made in China. Those are the products I was doing in Guangzhou province. So the point being is as much as we talk about China as the enemy, these corporations love China. Why? They love money. That's what I'm saying. I see very similar with the Israel or the Jews. I don't think it's a Jewish thing. I don't think it's a China thing. These people love money. That's why China is favored and Russia is not. Our corporations make a ton of money off China. We don't make that much money off Russia. So Russia is in a more negative view. China, don't fool yourself. As much as just like Donald Trump talks about China, he's going over there. He's going to kiss ass because he wants money. Same thing, there's another CEO who's going over there. And this company, as you know my background, what a traitorous, unpatriotic company that illegally fired an American military veteran, the Boeing Corporation. The same corporation that wants to take your taxes to build weapons to fight against China. Now they're in China kissing ass so that China could buy their planes. It's an absolute, it's a corporate mafia that's going on.
Products are manufactured in China. For Cook, this relationship isn't optional, it's existential because Apple simply cannot afford a full-scale economic Cold War between Washington and Beijing. Then, of course, there's Larry Fink of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. Trillions of dollars under management. He's there because the flow of capital between the US and China remains one of the biggest pressure points in the global economy. Next up is Kelly Ortberg from Boeing. China is one of the world's largest aviation markets, and Boeing's future completely depends on Chinese buyers. So this isn't just about airplanes, it's about American manufacturing jobs too. Then come the financial heavyweights. That includes Jane Fraser from Citigroup, David Solomon from Goldman Sachs, Michael Maybach from MasterCard, and Ryan McInerney from Visa. These are the people who move money across borders. Their presence sends a message. The United States is not arriving only with threats, it's arriving with business. Then there's the tech battlefield. You've got Cristiano Amon of Qualcomm and Sanjay Mehrotra of Micron Technology. This isn't about semiconductors. This is the technology powering everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence systems, and also the single most sensitive flashpoint in the US-China rivalry. But there's one name dominating the headlines, and that is none other than Elon Musk. The CEO of Tesla has massive exposure to China. China is one of Tesla's biggest markets, and the Shanghai Gigafactory remains central to Tesla's global operations. So Musk's presence here is about business, it's about optics, and perhaps also about power. Now,
the point being is it's about business, it's about money. It's not about patriotism. These corporations will sell you out.
The stated goal of the trip is to create a new body called the Board of Trade and Investment between US and China. Something that can actually be significant if it works, but if it is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Now, because what Trump wants and what Xi Jinping want are fundamentally different things. What does Trump want? Well, Trump wants deals, plain and simple, visible wins.
We're going to do a couple more videos. What I want to do, we'll do two more videos about the CEOs. That is the primary reason why Trump is there. Again, this is one of the most embarrassing. And the reason it's embarrassing is Trump portrays himself as the alpha male. He is in a subordinate position going to the yellow emperor's throne saying, can I please have money? And when you make that trip, you bring the most important people you have. And who are they? All the corporates. And these corporations don't give a fuck about you. I've worked for them in China. They don't, and they love China. They'll do deals with the devil. They'll legalize pedophilia if they can to make money. They'll do it in North Korea. They don't care. As long as there's money, they don't care. And that's where Trump. Now, China, what are their issues? They're going to be many times not political. There's going to be Taiwan. There's also issues with Iran, many different other issues. But don't fool yourself. When Trump makes this long journey and brings the most important, so the most important people are not these government yo-yos. The most important people in Trump's entourage is the money. Why? Because Trump is the super CEO and he's bringing all these other CEOs. This is about making money.
Case, China is weighing curbs on exports. It's a who's who of the business world heading to China with U.S. President Donald Trump this week as he meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Elon Musk, Apple's Tim Cook, and others will make the trip, according to a White House official. Sources say the companies hope the summit will generate enough political goodwill to unlock regulatory approvals, market access, and investment opportunities.
Remember the whole thing about the tariffs? Yeah. Good luck with that.
The sources said a critical precondition for companies to join the trip was having a, quote, tangible ask that promised a concrete outcome or handshake deal during or after the summit. None of the companies responded to requests for comment on their goals for outcomes from the summit. In Musk's case, China is weighing curbs on exports of solar manufacturing equipment to the United States, which could threaten plans by Tesla to build new factories or expand existing ones to boost local production. In March, Reuters reported that Tesla was looking to buy $2.9 billion of equipment for making solar panels from Chinese suppliers. Tesla is also seeking Chinese regulatory clearance to expand the adoption of its full self-driving assistance system in the world's largest auto market. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg told Reuters last month that the U.S. plane maker was counting on the Trump administration to help unlock a long-awaited major order from China. Boeing and China have been in prolonged talks for a deal that industry sources say could include 500 737 MAX jets, plus dozens of wide-body jets powered by GE engines. One CEO not making the trip is NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, a person familiar with the matter said on Monday. Huang was not invited.
Well, that got changed. He is invited. No, by the way, we got one more video, but Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, he's mentioned many talks, Chinese Americans. He always said, in my heart, I am Chinese. I will always be Chinese. Good luck with that stuff. But anyway, last video.
Of Apple, CBS News contributor. That's welcome back to the Takeout. As we mentioned, President Trump will be joined in one capacity or another by 16 top U.S. business executives while he is in China. Among the notable names, Elon Musk, Tesla and other companies, Larry Fink of BlackRock, Tim Cook of Apple. CBS News contributor, that's really good news, by the way, contributor, Patrick McGee joins me now. He's the author of a book I highly recommend, Apple in China, The Capture of the World's Greatest Company. Patrick, it's great to have you on the program. I appreciate your time. Talk to my audience.
So the part about Apple, I didn't read the book, but I get the concept already. Again, I worked for Apple as a contractor when I was in China, and that is, people talk about, let's just, this whole mirage of the Trump MAGA, it's going to collapse. I'm sorry to break your dreams. I've said this before Trump got elected. One, the factories are not coming back to America. The tariffs aren't going to work. Here's also the problem, too, about decoupling from China. I mean, you could do it, and we can do it, but it would be pain. And the globalists don't want to do that. Why? Because they just want to keep making money. The point being is China now is no longer there. I would put them in between a developing country, not an underdeveloped country, a developing country to a developed country. And what do I mean by that? When you're making products in factories like Apple, this is not something you can easily just decouple. Now, again, American citizens say, but why don't we just decouple, come back to America? That was America first, and that's a dream that's never going to happen. I'm sorry, you could keep blaming. But what about decoupling going to India, Vietnam? Very difficult, because the ecosystem is already built in China decades and decades. This is not cheap manufacturing anymore, especially products like that. I've been to these factories. I was doing auditing of their factories in Guangzhou. This is not, you just can't move to Africa and do this stuff. So the point being is these corporations, many of them know it, that they're locked in China. Why? Because they're not going to decouple and come back to America. It's going to hurt their profit margins. And Donald Trump sold you a broken dream. You're going to, not saying the Democrats are going to do anything better. this ship is going to sink. But anyway, these corporations know it. They are locked in China, and they're going to have to deal with China. Why? Because they don't have any other choice.
About this role of the business executives and Trump going to China, and quite separate from the war in Iran, some of the other economic factors at stake.
Well, you're right to mention the war in Iran. I mean, that's essentially what we don't want the summit to be about. You don't want this to be the Cold War summit. I mean, you don't want Taiwan to come up very much as Beijing wants that to happen. So by sort of stacking the guest list, if you will, with a bunch of corporate executives, I think Washington is properly signaling that this is all about, trade, investments, guaranteed investments from China towards soybeans and things like that. The more that they can gear the discussion towards things like that rather than Cold War issues, the better.
What is the takeaway from your book? I've read it, but my audience hasn't, about Apple and China and what was gained by Apple and its stockholders, but what was lost for America long term?
American capitalism is very much shareholder first capitalism. And so
we're going to wrap up this video. I'm going to give you the summary now. I didn't read the book, but I know about it already. Here's the problem with corporations. When I was with Boeing, I was charge of I wasn't in charge. I was part of a project that was the largest overseas investment in the history of Boeing. $700 million factory, just a single investment. What am I saying? Same thing what he's saying about with Apple. This thing called globalization, again, this is not rocket science, people. Globalization gutted the middle class. Globalization, though, padded the pockets of the high-level executive management. These would be American corporations. Oh, yes, our politicians. And, of course, it helped out the country because we invest in them. But for the middle class, because for that same factory that I was helping opening in China under Boeing, we were closing factories in China again, or closing factories in America. So this is not uncommon knowledge by now. We're realizing that the middle class is being wiped out. And of course, MAGA and Republicans, they get hard on illegal immigration. They don't have a problem with legal immigration. What do I mean by that? Well, the middle class is gutted. No one can afford to make children anymore. They don't care about you. Why? It's like a corporation. They'll replace you with cheap new labor in America to do their other stuff. It's all about the money. So the point being is the corporate executives make a lot of money. The shareholders make a lot of money. The politicians also make a lot of money. The middle class in America, well, your factory's gone right now. So I saw a lot of retarded Americans too, like, you're in China? Okay. You didn't mention anything about why is Coca-Cola in China? Why is IBM in China? Why is Amazon in China? Why is Walmart in China? Why is Boeing? We give these passes to these corporations. And we bought hook, line, and sinker for Trump. Not saying it was a bad decision like we were going to go for the Democrats, but I'm just saying sooner or later, Americans are going to realize there's not going to be a true political solution for this problem. And I believe what's going to happen is as the economic system, because there's a tsunami coming for America. When this it happens in history, we know that. We know these economic recessions, depressions, they happen. When that happens, that's when Americans are going to start waking up and they're going to start thinking outside the box on solutions. But as long as it's people are still going to believe that voting's working. Again, I'm not saying that the solution is to leave America, but that solution is increasing now. That's one solution. I'm out of here. It's a sinking ship. Either way, let me end it here because we always go. I try to keep it under an hour and it goes over an hour, but I just want to leave it here. One, don't confuse yourself. China is in a place of strength, at least in this time and place of this meeting. Not Trump, not America. We flew all of this is, of course, your taxpayer money, flew all the way to China to meet with the emperor on their terms. Second, Trump's going there to say, please, grift money, all his family, money for them, not for you, not for the middle class, for all these corporations. The corporations are what's important, not the middle class. Don't think so? Look at this Iran war. Another horseshit thing that MAGA said they were never going to get. We're getting a war. And then when Trump said, answer the question, what do you think about the economic situation in America? I don't care. I don't think about that. I mean, do you not? There comes a time where once a cock, twice a cock, three times a cock, You have to start taking responsibility for your own self. And I've said it too. I've mentioned it. If you go back to my video on X, I was speaking very strong about Trump. It's very simple. He has deviated from nationalism. Because he's deviated from nationalism, my support has deviated. Where do you go from here, though? It's going to be difficult, people. It's going to be difficult. I keep saying the best is yet to come, but you probably know what I'm going to say, and I'll wait for another video. Until then, to the Patriots out there, stay educated. Start making Plan B. You're going to need it. And until then, lead to victory.